gets a little bit scary when you're up here by yourself. Now, I know you're supposed to count it a privilege anytime you get to speak. And really I do, but I always have some concerns when I speak because what I speak on most of the time, or all of the time, will be my interpretation of how I read it or the way I understand it. And of course, my interpretation, my understanding, my explanation might be different than the way you see it. But anyway, anything I say here today will be my interpretation or the way that I read it. And to really teach, or as Reese said, Preacher Papa this morning, when we got out of the car, she said, Preacher Papa, are you ready? So Papa's about as ready as he's going to get, I guess. But it says really in 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 20, it says, knowing this first, that no prophecy, of course I'm not prophesying today, of the Scripture is of any private interpretation. For the prophecy came not in old times by the will of man, but holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Ghost. And when it's the holy men of God, to me that says it is men who, as Preacher Perry here, that have really been called to speak, teach, preach, and he's trained to do so, and others are the same way. I've never felt that I was called to speak, teach, or preach, and never been trained to do so. And that here again, this comes back to my interpretation of what I read. One example of a holy man is, we all remember, one that was called of God was Elisha. In 2 Kings chapter 4, if you remember, a Shunammite lady told her husband, as Elisha came and went by their house, I guess, several times, she said, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which patheth us continually. To me, that says, in his demeanor of everyday living, it just came out of him that he was called of God. This lady could perceive it just in his actions. And you know, and that's the way people can perceive us in our everyday actions. And I know, you know, I ramble around a whole lot, and as I've told you before, one time Todd Barnett, who's my supervisor at Clemson, asked me one time, he had asked me a question, and I started answering, and he said, can you just not say yes or no? I said, not really. He said, well, you always go all the way around the world. I said, well, that's what it takes to get to the answer your question. You know, I've got to fill you in on everything. So I ramble around quite a bit, but we'll get to the point, to the gist of it. The interpretation that people have sometimes, we look at, or we perceive, we look at other people, and it can actually come down to maybe you think, you look at somebody and say, well, I don't know about their faith here. They claim to have the faith, or you might even look at your own faith at times. Something happens in your life, and you say, well, I'm thinking I'm on the right path, I'm thinking I'm right, but you know, here again, this thing has come up, something's happened in your life, and it gives you just a little bit of doubt in faith. And at times, people maybe judge other people on faith. I know a lot of times, Judy and I, and we don't give a lot, but you take like St. Jude's Hospital for Children. Judy sends them money. We in faith give it and trust that it will be used correctly, be used in the right way. Judy and I here a couple of weeks ago. We were getting gas one Sunday evening, and Judy had went in to pay, and I was waiting there at the pump. I was gonna pump the gas, and I was just looking around, looking at everybody. And there's a lot of coming and going there at that gas station. And here comes this humongous camper. I mean, it's tricked out all the way, but pulling it was an older, I mean, big time old SUV that had really been through the roughs. And I'm thinking, you've got a camper such as this and pulling it with this, you know. But anyway, I thought, well, it's your business. I turned around to pump the gas, and somebody says, "Excuse me, sir." And I looked around, and here's this guy, and he said, "I'm not a bum, but we're staying down at Seneca in a motel." And I thought, well, you're pulling the camper, but you're staying in a motel. And he said, "I left my wallet at the motel," and he said, "I am on empty for fuel. Could you spare a couple of bucks?" And I started laughing, and I guess he thought, well, this guy's about half crazy maybe, but you know, but I'm thinking, you're pulling a trailer such as this, and you're needing $2, you know. So I gave him $5, and I said, "There you go." And he said, "Well, I'm not a bum." I said, "No, that's fine. I'm sure you're not." But anyway, when Judy came out, she said, "You think he actually is going to use that $5 for gas?" I said, "I gave it to him in faith. If he needed gas, fine. There's him $5, and what, gas is $2.30 cents. He maybe got 2 gallons. I don't know, but that might have got him down to Sunset to his motel where he could get his wallet. I don't know. But anyway, we always give in faith, and we trust that it will be used in the right way. And when we do, then we never worry about it again. We don't think about it anymore. In Matthew 7, and I'll tell you where I'm going with this in a minute. We'll get there. Matthew 7, verse 1 said, "Judge not that you be not judged." And verse 3 said, "And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?" Years ago, something happened, and it's been many, many years ago, something happened. And I've thought of it many times. There was a person that was sick. They were really sick, and it was diagnosed as terminal. And the family got all kind of different ones to pray, and of course, friends were praying, churches were praying, family was praying for this person. And I think I remember everything correctly. Like I say, this has been many years ago, but it has stuck with me for a long time. And there was a person that came to the home and prayed for this person. And he told the family when he was finished, if I remember correctly, I was not there, I was told this, but that the person was healed. No problem, no doubts about it, everything, the person was healed. But, threw the but in there, but if he wasn't healed, then that meant one person there, or maybe two, but somebody there was not a true believer. Long story, it went on, and the person passed away. They didn't make it. And so, of course, everybody involved, I guess they were looking at each other saying, well, I know I believe, so maybe it was you didn't believe right, or maybe they didn't believe right, and I guess they were looking at each other. So, here again, you have to be very careful in what you say. It made me wonder sometimes, maybe the guy that they had called this evangelist type person, and I know I'm stepping out on a limb here, but maybe he had a few doubts in what he was asking for also. I don't know. But I've thought about that many, many times. Many, many times I've thought about it. That instead of really helping, and actually he had caused some confusion in the long term. He had. And he might have been totally innocent in it, but it did happen, and I hope I told it correctly. It's been a long time ago, but the results did not come about that everyone wanted healing. But anyway, there's where I'm saying I always want to be careful in what I say, my interpretation. I don't want it to offend anyone or cause anyone to check themselves or wonder about themselves. There's things that have always happened. I know when sometimes if I prayed and asked for something, there's times you feel strong about it, that yeah, this, okay, good, and here's this, for lack of a better explanation, yes, I got through, everything's good, my prayer went through, and then there's sometimes you think, well, that just don't feel good there, you know, I'm not getting that fuzzy, warm, fuzzy feeling here on this one. But anyway, God always has a plan, and sometimes His plan is not what we're really looking for. In Matthew 19, it said, when Jesus found no fruit on a fig tree, He said, let no fruit grow on this henceforth forever. And it wilted away. And when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, how soon is the fig tree withered away? And Jesus answered and said unto them, verily I say unto you, if you would have faith, and no doubt ye shall not only do this which is done to the fig tree, but also if ye say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and thou cast it into the sea, it shall be done. My dad used to tell me a story every once in a while of, and I'm sure it was just a story, it was an illustration, but what he was trying to get across to me was the faith that we have. He said a guy had to cross a mountain every day to go to work, had to cross a mountain every day coming back home, and he was apparently walking. And so as the grain of a mustard seed, you know, as the scripture says, you can say to the mountain, be ye removed, and it shall be done. So Dad would tell me the guy prayed that night, you know, I'm tired of walking over this mountain, so, you know, be removed. So he got up the next morning, looked out the window, the mountain's still there. And he said, well, it's just as I expected. So the point of that one was the guy really didn't have faith that that mountain was going to be gone to begin with. He got up the next morning, looked out the window, and said, there it is, just like I knew it was going to be. So he wasn't too strong in it to begin with. Matthew chapter 26, verse 41 says, watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but flesh is weak. And all of us, of course, are flesh, and we are weak at times, so we have to be very careful on this one. In Luke chapter 9, speaking of Jesus, verse 1, then he called his 12 disciples together and gave them power and authority over all devils and to cure diseases. So, if you're a called man, like I began with here, if you don't have to be exactly a called man, you can have great faith, like all of us can. To me, this would kind of go back to the story I told. This would cancel out the part of someone not really having faith in the room. they could, all the people in that room could have had the best faith of anybody. I mean, it could have been strong. It could have been concrete strong. But here again, God has a purpose for us all. He has a plan for us all. And his plan for this person that was sick was to be taken to heaven. I mean, he didn't have to go through everything here on earth. And I'm sure he is in heaven. So God had a plan. God always answers the prayers one way or the other. And as I said earlier, sometimes the answer is not what we're looking for. And it can hurt us, and it can maybe test our faith. But God has a plan for us. But sometimes God will change his mind. It proves it to us. God can change his mind. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, God saw that the wickedness of men was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him at his heart. The Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping things and the fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. But this proves to us that God can change his mind. But Noah found grace in the eyes of God. So God changed his mind. So he can change it. And that should make us pray harder and keep a good, strong faith that maybe what we're up against praying for, maybe the odds are great against us. Maybe the odds in everyday life that you see a sickness or a problem 99.9% of the time don't go the way we want it to. But it proves right here. Just stay praying, stay straight, keep praying, and God can change his mind. So he said, my sheep hear my voice and I know them and they follow me. That just tells us to keep on keeping on. Sometimes as humans, I think we are quick to draw a conclusion. But the flesh is weak, but God is in control. He has a plan for us. And our faith has to be strong. It has to be true. And it's easy to stand up right now and say it because hopefully right now I don't have anything greatly pressing against me here. So I know when something does, and sometimes I take little things and make big things out of them. It turns into a big issue for me. Judy, Denise, Reese, they can always tell you, I am a worrier. I know Perry would, he's big time not to worry, but I do worry. Things do worry me. Well, I worry about things I couldn't even change. Judy says sometimes I look for stuff to worry about, I think, so, or she thinks I do, so. But, your faith gets tested every day, and you just have to stay strong with it. It's what that I can see. I'm not sure if I told you this before, but a friend of mine who was in Vietnam, he told a story to me one time that I've never forgotten. He told me this years ago. He was in the Nam Dang Valley or something there in Vietnam. I forget where he was, but anyway, he was in the Marines. They were some of the first ones in this part of the country. He said there was a young man in their squad or platoon, whatever he was in, And he said he was different from the rest of them. He said he was, everybody loved him to death, but he was just a different type boy. And his father had sent him a Bible, and he said that boy carried his Bible on his helmet in a band, but he always had that helmet. And my friend told me whenever they got a little time off, they did all kind of things to pass the time, but he said this boy read his Bible. He said he was always reading the Bible. He was just a good guy. But he said one time in a terrible battle, and they got overrun, and the only way he said that actually he got out of this battle was he carried a wounded to a helicopter, and the door gunner grabbed him and pulled him in as the helicopter was leaving. And he said it was really a bad one. He said then like the next day or something, or that evening or something, they went back to basically claim they're dead. And he said he walked up on that boy that always had the Bible, and of course he was dead. But he said there was like a shrapnel round or something had went through the Bible, went through the helmet, and hit the boy in the head. And he said, he said, I remember kicking that helmet down that hill. He said, I thought to myself, this, there's nothing to it. He said, this boy did the best he could. He was a good guy. He said, forget it. He said, I don't believe in nothing. He said, I don't believe if I can get home. He said, it ain't gonna matter to me. He said, but he said it took him a long time. But he said, he said, I'm good now. He said, I'm back right with God. He said, I'm good. But he said it took me a long time to get over it. He said, that really rocked my faith right there. So things can come up to rock us, but we just have to stay and try to work through it. And again, as I say, I know it's easy when things are going good for us, but when sometimes you get up against it, it'll test us, and we can look for it. It's going to happen. But anyway, I rambled all around today. But I guess if you wanted to title what I spoke on, it would just be testing our faith, and not check other people's faith for me and let them work out their own thing. So, but anyway, I appreciate y'all coming. I appreciate the time. And I guess, unless somebody has a question for me, I guess that's all I have today. If I've said something that you don't agree with or whatever, or bothers you, you can always ask me. I'll try my best to explain why I said it. So, anybody else have anything else? Well, if not, I guess we'll go with our last song, Miss Ruth. What a friend we have in Jesus. 435. That's one we're going to do. 435. Let's sing the first and third verse. What a friend we have in Jesus.
All our sins and griefs.
gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this time that we can be together, and anything said and done this day would be to Your honor and glory, that You would be pleased with. Now go out with us throughout the rest of the week. Bless each and every one. Touch those standing in the need of prayer. Those names have been called, those names who have not been called, but You know them, Lord. We ask that You would touch each and every one. Go with us in Jesus' name. Help us to have a good day. Amen.